The Deathguard are disgustingly resilient, plague-bearing warriors who spread disease and corruption across the galaxy. But where did they come from? And how was the ancient corruption of the Chaos God Nurgle gifted upon them? As with all things in the 40K universe, their story began long ago, in a time of war. It all began with a warrior called Typhon, who was born on the toxic planet of Barbarus, a mysterious world shrouded in poison mists. Typhon possessed formidable psychic powers inherited from the mutant psycho warlords that inhabited the planet. Mortarion, the Primarch of the Deathguard, would defeat these psychic warlords after being banished to Barbarus by the Dark Gods, freeing the planet from their domination. Mortarion would eventually be discovered and reunited with the Emperor and his army of superhuman space marines. Typhon was among the chosen warriors of Barbarus to join their ranks, as he demonstrated great inner strength. However, now that Typhon had become a member of the Deathguard Legion, his masterful psychic powers were repressed, as Mortarion disapproved of such arcane abilities, believing they were unfitting for a true warrior and an unwanted reminder of the terrible powers wielded by the former overlords of Barbarus. Despite not making use of his hidden abilities, Typhon would continue to demonstrate his superior skills and would become an honourable, stoic warrior. Mortarion saw Typhon's potential, and envisioning his future greatness, elevated him to first captain of the Deathguard Legion. Following this, the Emperor would lead his legions during his Great Crusade, where Typhon made immense contributions to his legion's success in bringing errant worlds to imperial compliance. Things would begin to change for the Deathguard in the closing stages of the Great Crusade, when Typhon was inducted into the secrets of the Seven-Pillared Lodge. It was during this that he began to foresee a future without the Emperor, and where his powerful psychic abilities would be a source of greatness instead of a curse to be hidden away. Mortarion himself would fall to the lure of the ruinous powers soon after, choosing to side with Horus. With the Primarch of the 14th Legion and its first captain united in their hidden rebellion against the Emperor, the remaining members of the Deathguard swiftly became infected with the same mutinous thoughts. As a great darkness descended upon the Imperium, Horus and his armies began the invasion of Terra itself. Mortarion and the Deathguard were to join the other traitor legions in the war against the false Emperor. In an unfortunate turn of events, the Deathguard fleet navigators had been killed after being accused of an alleged betrayal. This would delay the fleet from passing through the warp, preventing them from reaching Terra in time for the assault. In his arrogance, Typhon insisted that his adept psychic abilities would prove enough to guide them and provide safe passage through the treacheries of the warp. Initially, Mortarion rejected the proposal of relying on such fickle powers, but as time and choice was limited, he grudgingly approved, little knowing that this action would condemn his entire legion to an eternity of servitude to a foul and ancient Chaos God, Nurgle, the Lord of Decay. The Deathguard fleet, now relying on Typhon, began their transition into the warp. This would be the last time the Deathguard Legion would be seen as their former selves. They did not make it to Terra, as they became trapped in the realm of the Immaterium, deep within the mysteries of the warp itself. As their warships drifted through the tangled web of darkness, Nurgle, the Chaos Lord of Decay, moved in to claim his new servants. Nurgle's power began to infiltrate the Legion's warships, bringing with it the terrible infection of the Destroyer Plague and Nurgle's rot. The infection quickly began to take hold of the fleet. The Marines trapped within the ships were enveloped by a thick miasma of pestilence and disease. even the mechanical components of the ships began to fester and clog with fungal gunk. Before long, the polluted air was filled with demon flies, whose venomous bites left bulging sores that would eventually burst forth with strange new growths spouting out from the surface of the skin. Blood and yellow mucus started streaming from the eyes of the Deathguard as their bodies swelled and melded with their armor, disfiguring its uniform shape. Many less resilient legions would have died long before reaching the severe levels of horror and misery that the members of the Deathguard had to endure, as their fabled superhuman resilience was now their downfall, as they survived through unimaginable pain, unable to die as per the will of their new Plague Lord. Captain Callus Typhon, having delivered the fleet to the hands of Nurgle, was rewarded by the Lord of Decay with the honour of being the new host of the Destroyer Hive. Dying from the Destroyer Plague, Typhon absorbed the full power of the disease. His swelling body fused with his armour as hollow, tubular bone chimneys spurted out from his back. These pestilential funnels allowed thousands of demon flies lingering in the air to swarm into his body, infesting his insides. The insects started to consume the decaying flesh of Typhon, turning his body into a walking colony of disease. The psychic energy still pulsing through what was left of Typhon's body interacted with the foul insects, causing them to spread black clouds of decay from the bone funnels on his back. The Chaos Lord Typhus, host of the Destroyer Hive and Herald of Nurgle, had been born. As Nurgle's rot and the Destroyer Plague ravaged his entire fleet, Mortarion could only watch helplessly as the once legendary resilience of the Deathguard was washed away. The vile pestilence corrupted their superhuman bodies, slowly transforming them into grotesque, pustulant horrors. As time passed, the condition of the Deathguard worsened, and yet their bodies still refused to die through the agony of their transformation. Unable to endure the cruel suffering any longer, Mortarion offered the souls of himself and his entire legion in return for respite from the endless nightmare and escape from an eternity trapped within the warp. A shrouded presence answered. It was the very god which had cursed them in the beginning, Nurgle. In exchange for their souls, Nurgle granted them release from an eternity trapped within the warp and transformed the Deathguard into his own personal plague marines to act as bearers of his dreadful plague. What later emerged from the warp bared little resemblance to the proud, gleaming ivory-armoured warriors that once entered. The mutated beings that returned from the immaterial realm were bloated with disease. The once bright ivory armour was stained a dull green, seeping with pustulant slime and stains of decay. Their bodies had been deformed, bending and bulging their armour into irregular shapes, and a cloud of swarming flies followed their approach as they bore the foul stench of corruption. Nurgle's gift had removed all feeling of the agonizing pain they once felt, making them disgustingly resilient warriors, spreading misery and despair. Even their weapons and vehicles did not escape the blightful powers of the Plague God, as they were now glowing with green warp energy and oozing with foul, gangrenous slime. Mortarion himself had been greatly mutated, as Nurgle chose to transform him into a creature of immense power, a demon prince of decay. In doing so, Nurgle had gained his greatest demonic servant to lead his new army of Plague Marines. Condemned to a deathless state of decay, the Deathguard would spread their pestilent diseases throughout the galaxy for the glory of chaos. After their vile transformations, some of Mortarion's sons embraced their new form, believing themselves as the only mortals worthy enough to receive Nurgle's gift, while others despised what the corruption had done to their once mighty bodies and were driven to the brink of madness at the state of their new, soulless existence. Whatever the case, Mortarion and his Deathguard had fallen to Nurgle's grasp, forever cursed to walk the worlds of the galaxy in his rancid form. In the countless wars that followed, their devotion to their foul Chaos God would only deepen. Back on Terra, the assault of the Chaos forces was eventually broken, and Horus himself was defeated by the Emperor, putting an end to the Siege of Terra. The remaining Chaos legions withdrew from the heart of the Imperium, retreating back into the Eye of Terror, and were joined by Mortarion and his Deathguard. Searching for a new base of operations for launching attacks from out of the Eye of Terror into the physical universe, Mortarion claimed the demon world known as the Plague Planet as his new homeworld for his Plague Marines. Over the years, Mortarion would eventually mould the planet to resemble Barbarus, their former home planet. The Plague Planet was known for its highly toxic atmosphere, but this environment would suit the new Deathguard, who were immune to such conditions, and would become a place of horror and misery. Mortarion would remain on the Plague Planet within the Eye of Terror, and would not be seen again by the Imperium for almost 10,000 years. He would finally re-emerge during the 41st millennium, for the first time since the Horus Heresy, to lead the invasion of the Deathguard on the realm of Ultramar during an event known as the Plague Wars. Typhus, however, believed his Primarch had demonstrated great weakness in shaping their new planet in the form of their former homeworld Barbarus. By this point, Typhus had become an unholy legend in his own right, and was not content with an idle existence as his Primarch's right hand. The loyalty of Typhus was to his Chaos God Nurgle, and not to his Primarch. With this, he formed a mighty plague fleet with those warriors whose hatred for the Imperium still burned brightly, and took to the warp once more. Unwilling to repeat the mistakes of the Emperor, Mortarion decided to let his defiant son depart to forge his own destiny, only calling upon him when needed. Typhus travelled back through the Eye of Terror with his army of Plague Marines to carry out Nurgle's bidding. At the head of the Deathguard's decaying starfleet flew the Terminus Est, a colossal battle barge from ancient times before the Horus Heresy. This formidable vessel would be the spear that Typhus intended to plunge deep into the heart of the Imperium, bringing forth a miasma of destruction to the defences of mankind. Typhus now commands the strategies of the entire fleet from the bridge of this mighty vessel. Gifted with the miasmic energies of chaos, the ship is encrusted with rotting filth, inside and out, and wherever it makes a dreaded appearance, it heralds plague, death, and misery. Even whispers of its coming can trigger panicked, system-wide evacuations from worlds in its path, for wherever Typhus travels, only pain and despair remain in his wake. In the following 10 millennia, since leaving the Plague Planet, Typhus has remained free to maraud throughout the galaxy at will. Typhus has wreaked unimaginable havoc on the worlds of the Imperium, infecting countless citizens with Nurgle's rot, and killing even more with the deadly Destroyer Hive. As Typhus's fleet passes, a vile blight is left in its wake, causing its victims to suffer a gruesome demise. The bodies of those felled by this disease are reanimated as walking plague zombies, held together by the powerful chaos energies of Nurgle. With the opening of the Great Rift during the 13th Black Crusade, the seeping energies from the warp have mutated these zombies over time even further to form walking nightmares of misery and despair, known as Poxwalkers. The Poxwalkers have contributed greatly to the rampant spread of infection on many worlds of the Imperium. The very sight of their grim approach has spelled doom for countless defenders of humanity and Xenos forces alike. Throughout the countless assaults of the Deathguard, they have spread many diseases upon the Imperium of man, but none so potent as the dreaded Destroyer Plague. It is without doubt the most lethal of all, In the thick of battle, the tubular chimneys which protrude from the cataphracty Terminator armour of Typhus belch out great clouds of demonic flies which swarm into the gaps in his opponent's armour, stinging their victims with demon poison until there is nothing left but a pile of plague-riddled corpses. The demon flies are seen as angels of decay to the followers of Nurgle, just waiting to pass on the blessing of rot and entropy to all they touch. But fortunately for the Imperium, the range of the Destroyer Plague is limited by the location of its source, Typhus, the host of the Destroyer Hive. In the darkness of the galaxy, stories of Typhus linger, telling of his entry into the Garden of Nurgle in the realm of chaos, learning how to further bring chaotic decay to the material realm. Some believe that this was the site where he was gifted his iconic dread weapon, Man-Reaper. Man-Reaper is an ancient demonic power scythe rumoured to be dipped in Nurgle's own brew of filth. Anyone unlucky enough to be touched by the blade quickly collapses into a pile of festering rot. As his travels continue to bring system after system to ruin, Typhus becomes even more convinced that he is the true son of Nurgle, and that Mortarion was purely a catalyst by which the Plague Marines were brought to the universe. To Typhus, his former Primarch had demonstrated his own lack of worth by failing to wage the long war against the Imperium. When Typhus is not desecrating the worlds of the Imperium, or harvesting souls for Nurgle with his relic power scythe on the field of battle, he remains stationary upon the Terminus Est's command throne. When in this state, his psychically attuned mind becomes linked with the ship's senses to search for the next destination amongst the tangled corridors of the warp. Amongst the other traitor legions, he has earned the name of the Traveler, a name befitting his endless travels to find yet more places to spread Nurgle's blessings and to bear down misery and despair on the hopeless mortals of the galaxy.